Did you know that you can own not just one but several houses, even an apartment complex containing multiple units? True, no lies. To find out how, stick around with us until the end. This is Jamaica Magazine and I'm Adrian Atkinson. The show with the information you need to know begins right now.
It's the 11th staging of the JIS Heritage Competition. Students, show your national pride by entering the essay, poster and photo competition. Primary school students, enter the essay competition. Triumphant, proud and free. Use this phrase from the song Jamaica Land of Beauty to explain our nation's heritage and achievements. High school students, design a poster that best portrays the phrase triumphant, proud and free. And university students, capture a photo that depicts the phrase triumphant, proud and free. Haven't sent in your entries yet? There's still time. The competition has been extended to November 7. Visit jis.gov.jm for guidelines. Triumphant, proud and free. The JIS Heritage Competition 2021.
Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, November 2. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has called on world leaders to increase the quality of climate finance available to small island developing states. Mr. Holness made the appeal on Monday as he delivered Jamaica's national address at the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26. The Prime Minister says funding is urgently needed to strengthen Jamaica's resilience and reduce its vulnerabilities.
This means boosting grant funding from its current levels and allocating at least half of concessional climate finance to support adaptation and resilience objectives.
COP26 is being held in Glasgow, Scotland under the co-presidency of the United Kingdom and Italy. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness unveiled Jamaica's climate change adaptation and mitigation plan at COP26's plenary session on Monday. In addition to sharing the country's revised nationally determined contributions, Mr. Holness revealed that work has commenced on the 2050 long-term emissions reduction and climate resilience strategy. Jamaica has sponsored a catastrophe bond to finance losses from hurricanes and launched a green bond project on the Jamaica Stock Exchange to fund environmentally sound initiatives. A predictive climate risk tool is also being developed to identify vulnerable areas to guide infrastructure development and investments.
Our climate-smart agriculture projects are integrating technology and once again attracting young people. Our mangrove restoration program is well underway together with our efforts to plant 3 million trees in 3 years. And our fish sanctuaries and pilot programs for reef restoration are effectively engaging coastal communities. Colleagues, let us all play our part and meet this moment with urgent and decisive action.
Regional governments are collectively intensifying efforts to reduce multi-hazards such as hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and the COVID-19 pandemic. The solutions are being supported through the 7th Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Americas and the Caribbean, RP21, now on until Thursday. It's examining matters such as social protection, building resilient economies and infrastructure, green economies, and disaster modeling. In his opening address yesterday, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development Desmond McKenzie said government would be creating the necessary financial management to address these disaster issues.
We have therefore initiated specific and measurable programs, policies, legislations, such as the Disaster Risk Management Act, the Building Act, the Disaster Fund, and the major infrastructure development program to integrate disaster risk reduction into the national development of the country.
The RP21 conference is being hosted by the Government of Jamaica from November 1 to 4 under the theme Building Resilient Economies in the Americas and the Caribbean. Jamaica's supply of COVID-19 vaccines will increase by over 500,000 doses over the next few days. On Monday, a donation from the government and people of Canada of 369,000 doses of AstraZeneca arrived at the Norman Manley International Airport in Kingston. Another 204,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine are expected on Wednesday. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is reminding the public that the Pfizer vaccines will be used to inoculate persons who are awaiting their second dose of that brand, and the balance is prioritized for children 12 to 17 years old. Persons due for their second dose are being asked to schedule an appointment at moh.gov.jm or call the vaccination center at 888-1-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. You can choose your preferred date, time, and vaccination center. Members of the public are reminded to take a government-issued ID, school ID for students, or letter from a justice of the peace, as well as their vaccination card to their appointments. More students and teachers continue to benefit from the Education Ministry's One Laptop or Tablet per Child initiative with an additional donation valued at $1.6 million. This donation, which was made by Unicomma Jamaica Limited on Thursday, will see 20 laptops going to secondary school students and primary school teachers.
Thank you so much for this donation to our One Laptop or Tablet per Child initiative. The donation of 20. Very nice. Laptops, Lenovo laptops to our children, 10 for our students and 10 for our teachers in our primary schools. As you may know, we are about to begin an initiative to hand over 5,000 laptops to our teachers in primary school. And so this adds to that.
The Education Minister says technology will remain a permanent part of the education sector beyond COVID-19 as Jamaica aims to become a digital society. And finally, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information says there's an increase in reports of child abuse since the launch of the 211 helpline in September. State Minister Robert Morgan reports that over 6,000 calls have been made up to October by children and concerned members of the public. He was speaking recently at the launch of the Mentorship for At-Risk Youth project by the Optimist International Caribbean District.
When we look at the data that comes to our ministry, we realize that there are significant incidents of child neglect within our society. There are significant incidents of child sexual abuse. There are significant incidents of child physical abuse.
The 24-hour child abuse helpline, which replaces 888-PROTECT, can be dialed from a cellular or landline telephone free of cost. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thanks for watching.
Behind every Jamaican medical cannabis product is a story. To create that perfect plant requires the care, patience and nurturing of that special farmer. When harvested, it is carefully transported to a processing facility where it is transformed into high-quality medical cannabis products for consumption by responsible consumers. All this and more is possible through the closed-loop system created by the Cannabis Licensing Authority to protect the integrity of Jamaica's medical cannabis industry. For more information, call the Cannabis Licensing Authority at 876-654-7582 or visit our website at cla.org.jm.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness is very clear the country must be able to manage the pandemic while balancing the books. Strict COVID-19 preventative and recovery protocols must be maintained to ensure the country continues to strive. Next, highlights of the Prime Minister's activities during the past week.
Prime Minister heads to COP26, updates COVID-19 control measures, and officially opens repaired Gordon Town Road. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Anthony Morgan.
Climate change remains a preeminent priority for global action. As we have come to appreciate with the pandemic, no one is safe until everyone is safe. So too with climate change. All countries must act responsibly and with ambition to preserve our climate for current and future generations.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness was speaking Monday during the leaders' event at the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26. The leaders' event was held under the theme Action and Solidarity, a Critical Decade. COP26 is being held in Glasgow, Scotland, under the co-presidency of the United Kingdom and Italy. Jamaica is expected to update its commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and submit its climate change adaptation policy at the conference. The Prime Minister is also utilizing the visit to hold bilateral discussions with other world leaders. Before his departure, the Prime Minister signed a Memorandum of Understanding to launch the Victoria Palm Housing Development Project in Denham Town, Kingston. The development is a partnership involving the Ministries of Economic Growth, Local Government, Housing and Urban Renewal, as well as the Kingston and St Andrew Municipal Corporation. It will be undertaken as part of the social housing component of the HOPE program. 1 to 3 bedroom houses will be built, while tenements will be upgraded, and 200 persons will be relocated during the development phase of the project. Mr. Holness says the Victoria Palm development will be used as a pilot for the upgrading of housing in urban areas. He says government remains committed to providing 70,000 housing units for all categories of Jamaicans, including those who cannot afford to purchase their own homes.
In that round number of 70,000 new housing solutions, there is a house in there for you. If you are someone who is indigent, you are unemployed, we believe that good housing, good shelter is a right, and we are going to do everything in our powers to ensure that you can benefit from one of these shelter solutions.
Friday also saw the Prime Minister officially reopening the Gordon Town roadway in East Rural St Andrew. The road was damaged during the passage of Tropical Storm Eta last October. Mr. Holness expressed satisfaction that the National Works Agency-headed project was completed in time and under its $187 million budget.
We have not only done the retaining wall, we have put in place a lovely parapet wall, which you see there, for increased safety, but we have resurfaced the road up to basic standards. And the road has been properly marked and properly graded. So the people who live in this area and who have to traverse through this area to get home have greater convenience and safety.
In Parliament Tuesday, Mr. Holness announced that face-to-face classes would resume for certain categories of students. In addition to some learning centers, basic and infant schools reopening, 376 primary schools will open their doors on November 8. At the secondary level, students in grades 11 to 13 are to return to prepare for external exams.
There's no perfect and easy solution. So we believe we can manage the risk of outbreak by strategically allowing some children to go back and putting in place a measure that allows vaccinated students where vaccines are accessible.
During Tuesday's sitting of the lower house, Mr. Holness also announced that no movement days had been discontinued. Instead, a standard nightly curfew of 8 o'clock for the 7 days of the week will be in place between October 29 and December 10.
We will reconvene our Cabinet's COVID subcommittee to review these measures in 3 weeks' time. And depending on the level of increase in our vaccination rate and the continued decrease in the positivity rate, then we could come back with even better news.
Measures that remain the same for the 5-week period are the gathering limits for funeral and burials, public gatherings, worship, weddings, annual general meetings, and public body events. Mr. Holness says only fully vaccinated persons will be allowed at events hosted by public entities. The work-from-home policy for the public sector is still in effect, and consultations will be had with interest groups to determine procedures for the Christmas season. And Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced the removal of travel restrictions on all countries that were banned due to their high COVID-19 infection rate or risk factor from new variants. A negative COVID-19 test result 3 days ahead of travel is still required. Mr. Holness also revealed that the travel authorization process had been improved and overhauled.
We have reduced the number of questions and increased the speed of approval. Jamaican passport holders and tourists now obtain expedited approvals within minutes of submitting their application, provided no COVID-related risks are identified. Permanent residents and work permit holders are required to upload documentary evidence of residency status in Jamaica, following which approval is granted.
And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica has the only nuclear reactor that is found in the English-speaking Caribbean. Coming up, the details of this important technology and its uses.
Building reactors is expensive. That is one caveat in other countries having them to begin with. Jamaica was fortunate in that we had a predecessor, Professor Gerald Laylaw, who had contacts both within the government as well as in international agencies who funded the construction of this reactor in 1984, when the reactor was commissioned. We've been fortunate to use it for so many good works that Jamaica has benefited from since and will continue to benefit from in the future.
This nuclear reactor that we're discussing today is the Slowpoke 2 Research Reactor, located at the International Center for Environmental and Nuclear Sciences in Kingston. It is the only one of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean.
Strange, not many people know that. It's not a power reactor, we don't generate electricity. It's a tiny reactor and compared to what you might have seen in the movies, actually. Our reactor is just 20 kilowatts, so think about it like 20 tea kettles in your house. That's the amount of power that it has. So it's definitely not power and definitely not going to cut your light bill right now. But what we use this reactor to do is research.
This is very important for us Jamaicans, as nuclear techniques have been applied to study a range of topics from health to agriculture and even climate change.
How the reactor works, it's a device that basically generates neutrons. These neutrons are generated through a process called fission. Fission is basically when the atoms split. So every time those atoms split, it's generating heat. We have a thing in the reactor called a control rod. So think of it like a flashlight. If I put that flashlight on my hand and it's on, you're not going to see the light. That light in this case represents free neutrons. As I lift that light, in this case the control rod, then I can see more glow. That's more neutrons available. And the more they interact is the more they split, and it's a controlled reaction that occurs in the reactor. When you think about power reactors, that heat that's generated is what's used to, propel steam turbines and create energy that we would use as electricity. But in our case, since we're not using it for energy, what we're using it to do is basically irradiate the sample that you give me. So if you come to me as a client and you're curious, what's in my plant or what's in my soil, I basically expose your soil or plant to these free neutrons and it gets irradiated. Once you give me your sample and I expose it to radiation, it becomes radioactive. Since it's radioactive, it's basically going to start decaying over a period of time. When it decays, it has these unique gamma rays, which we can pick up on our detector right here. Those unique gamma rays there can tell me how much of what is in your sample. If you're curious as to how much arsenic is in your plant or how much arsenic is in your soil and chromium, that's the information that I'll be able to provide. The number may or may not mean much to you. How that relates is to regulatory policies that are set by agencies that are not us, for example, NEPA or even the World Health Organization. They have limits that are set for lead in soil or lead in plants or lead in water. What we can do is do our analysis and provide a result so that you have an idea of what you're working with, whether as someone going into agriculture or you're thinking about exporting. So this entire lab is a part of the whole process. When I get a sample and it's prepared, we package them in these polyethylene vials. That's what we use to send to the reactor. If you think about it like when you go to the banks in the States and you put your money in this tube and you shoot it to the teller, in this case the teller is the reactor. We do the same thing here, but they're much tinier vials.
This nuclear reactor and its value to the research field is part of what is helping to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
The government of Jamaica and its partners invites you to be part of the 7th Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Americas and the Caribbean, November 1 to 4. Tune into this station and watch the opening and closing ceremonies, as well as select sessions on the Ministry of Local Government's Facebook page, the JIS website and YouTube channel. Hear how the region is building resilient economies in the Americas and the Caribbean for you, for now, and for the future.
Yes, it's now time to talk about housing development. Not only financial institutions, but also Jamaicans can acquire a loan from the Jamaica Mortgage Bank to build housing solutions. Many have done it, so why not you? Next, the full details on that.
Shelter, one of humans' most basic needs. While many persons have access to housing, only a few have accomplished the goal of home ownership. That's why government through the Jamaica Mortgage Bank is ensuring that even more Jamaicans can lay claim to a piece of the rock. As the name suggests, the Jamaica Mortgage Bank provides interim financing for developers to build affordable houses. Established in June 1971 as a private liability company, the bank was converted in 1973 to a statutory corporation. During the 1980s and early 90s, the bank partnered with what is now known as the Housing Agency of Jamaica to fund housing solutions across the island. Today, the Jamaica Mortgage Bank is a self-financing entity with the sole purpose of funding safe and affordable housing solutions for Jamaicans.
The Jamaica Mortgage Bank has financed over 150 projects over its 50 years. More recently though, in the last 5 years, we have accelerated our mandate and we are now providing more financing than before in the last 5 years. In fact, over the last 5 years, we have assessed about 58 projects across the length and breadth of Jamaica, valuing about $26 billion.
The bank offers 3 distinct services: financing for the primary market, financing for the secondary market, and managing the Government of Jamaica's Mortgage Indemnity Insurance Plan. The core of the mortgage bank's work is in the primary market, where it provides developers with financing to build houses.
You cannot go anywhere in Jamaica and not see housing development going on. And that's only because there's such a huge gap between the number of starts compared to the demand. And in addition to that, we know that it's a low-hanging fruit in terms of investments for developers. They enjoy a very healthy return on equity and return on investment. So what we're seeing is that development in terms of returns compete with only the stock market.
In the secondary market, the bank offers a pool of funds to financial institutions who then on-lend to potential homeowners at an affordable rate. And through the Mortgage Indemnity Insurance Plan, the bank provides an entry point for developers to get into the housing market.
We insure the risk that mortgage lenders do not want to take in terms of the percentage of loan to an individual. Once that is insured, then the potential purchaser of a house has a lower down payment, and so they can get into housing much quicker. We think that's a very innovative plan for Jamaica, and we have seen a significant increase in the number of financial institutions that is using that tool to get individuals into houses much faster.
A developer seeking financing for their project may call the Jamaica Mortgage Bank or visit its website to ascertain the requirements for a loan.
We have a checklist of about 27 items. It sounds a lot, but it's not that onerous. It is information that you would have to provide to any financial institution in which you want to access a loan. But some of the primary things that we look at is a drawing. We look at the approvals from the municipal corporations. We look at approvals from NEPA if it is required. We look at approvals from the fire, water if required. We also look at the costs. We look at the marketing because that is critical.
A financial feasibility project document is generated, which is run through the Jamaica Mortgage Bank's credit model. From there, a rating and pricing is attached to the project. Securitization and mobilization are the next steps once an agreement is reached between the developer and the bank.
Most developers will tell you that we behave like a private sector company. Our process is extremely efficient. In fact, from the time of submitting the documentation that are required to the time of approval, once a project is deemed to be feasible, could take 1 month.
The first word I have to say is really awesome. We first approached the mortgage bank in, I think it was November of 2019, and immediately we were introduced to their technical staff that brought us right through the process. And I want to emphasize on the technical staff because without them we probably wouldn't have been where we're at right now. They really guide us throughout the process, and I can tell you by February of 2020 we had a provisional approval.
The Jamaica Mortgage Bank has been very interactive and cooperative, and we have been partners for the last over a decade.
We are seeing the ordinary person getting into housing development. We have seen an increase in women in development. We have seen pastors, we have seen people who have had other careers getting into housing development. And I think all of that combined is contributing to the increase in volume that we're seeing in terms of housing.
It's pragmatic advice based on profitability for the project and tweaking the design that the consumer can accept and appreciate it. And if them tell you something, that is how it goes. You understand? They're very factual and straightforward. And that's what you need. And reliable. Reliability is what you need in this industry.
Each project is looked on an individual basis and priced accordingly. But we are extremely competitive in terms of our interest rates. We also have a discounted rate based on whether or not that project is considered a green project, whether there's water harvesting, whether or not there might be solar panels.
Persons wishing to access the bank's mortgage indemnity insurance plan will have to go through their mortgage lending institution. Here's how it works. A potential homeowner is seeking a $10 million loan. The mortgage institution is only willing to lend 90% of the loan, leaving the 10% or $1 million for the mortgagee. If the potential homeowner is unable to come up with a down payment, the Jamaica Mortgage Bank steps in, providing insurance for the remaining loan amount. That way, should the mortgagee default on the loan, the mortgage bank will reimburse the lending institution the 10%. So, if you're looking to finance your housing development,
the mortgage bank is here to assist, to help you, to hold your hands, and to help you accomplish your objective.
You've reached the final page of the magazine. Thanks so much for being with us on today's journey. Another Jamaica Magazine unfolds tomorrow, so come back then, same time, on this same station. Until then, click on our social media pages for more informative features. While there, please subscribe to our pages and channels so you can stay in the know. I'm Adrian Atkinson, reminding you to live well.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.